I've been fired before. Well, almost fired. Almost promoted. Almost appreciated. Corporate life is basically one long relationship with the word almost. But I'd never been escorted out by security. Until that Tuesday. And honestly, it was way less dramatic than movies make it look. Nobody tackled me. Nobody yelled. Nobody pressed a giant red button. A security guard named Carl simply appeared beside my desk holding a clipboard. Cynthia? Yes. I need you to come with me. I looked up from my coffee. Am I being arrested? Carl sighed. If you were, this would be a much worse conversation. Fair point. Before I tell you why security walked me out of the building and then came chasing after me 21 minutes later, subscribe to Hidden Truth Chronicles, where workplace karma arrives faster than HR can schedule a meeting. Now, let's begin. My name is Cynthia Morgan. For 7 years, I worked as a process improvement specialist at Falcon Logistics. Which sounds impressive until I explain it. Basically, whenever something broke, people called me. Software issue? Cynthia. Missing inventory? Cynthia. Customer complaint? Definitely Cynthia. Printer possessed by ancient demons? Surprisingly. Also Cynthia. One day our IT manager actually walked into my office and said, "The printer isn't working." I asked, "Did you call IT?" He stared at me, then slowly said, "I am IT." That was the moment I realized our company had problems. My manager, Derek Hall, was one of those leaders who confused confidence with confidence. If Derek got lost in a parking lot, he'd somehow turn it into a motivational speech. His favorite phrase was, "I see the big picture," which was true, because he rarely noticed the details. And unfortunately, the details were usually on fire. For years, I'd quietly fixed issues before anyone noticed them. Not because I wanted recognition, because I enjoyed solving problems. Derek enjoyed taking credit for them. We had a system. I solved things. He presented things. The company applauded. Everybody went home. Then came the warehouse automation project, a $6 million system designed to modernize operations. Derek proudly announced during a meeting, "This project will transform Falcon Logistics." He pointed at me. "Cynthia is handling the technical integration." Translation: if it succeeds, Derek gets praise. If it fails, Cynthia gets therapy. For 6 months, I practically lived inside that project. I built workflows, managed vendors, trained staff, created contingency plans, and wrote a 146-page operations manual that nobody read. Except me. Because apparently I was the only person afraid of disasters. Turns out, that fear would become useful. Very useful. 3 weeks before launch, I discovered something. A very expensive something. A software conflict that could shut down the entire warehouse system. Not permanently, but long enough to cost the company millions. I documented everything. Created a fix. Scheduled a meeting. Explained the risk. Derek listened for exactly 47 seconds. Then interrupted. "Cynthia, you're overthinking." The most dangerous sentence in corporate history. Right behind. "Let's skip testing." And, what could possibly go wrong? I pushed the report toward him. "You really need to review this." He pushed it back. "We're moving forward." Launch day arrived. Everything worked beautifully. For 6 hours. Then, exactly as predicted, the system crashed. Orders stopped moving. Scanners disconnected. Forklift operators stood around staring at frozen screens. One guy reportedly unplugged a machine and plugged it back in 6 times. Which, to be fair, works surprisingly often. Just not this time. By noon, executives were panicking. By 1 p.m., customers were calling. By 2 p.m., Derek needed someone to blame. And somehow, that someone became me. By 2:15 p.m., I was sitting in HR. You know it's serious when the HR representative starts with, "Thank you for coming." Nobody has ever heard those words and thought, "This is going to be fantastic." Across the table sat Derek, looking as calm as a man who had just thrown someone else under a bus and watched it reverse for good measure. The HR manager cleared her throat. "Cynthia, We've decided to terminate your employment effective immediately. I blinked. I'm being fired because the system crashed? Derek answered before HR could. You were responsible for the implementation. I leaned forward. And who told me to ignore the safety report? Silence. I looked at HR. I emailed the report. I scheduled the meeting. I documented the risks. I even highlighted the page that said, this system may fail during peak operations. Derek smiled. Unfortunately, that's not relevant today. I almost laughed. Actually, I think it's about to become very relevant. 5 minutes later, Carl, the security guard, walked me to my desk. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I don't make these decisions. I know. I just wish they didn't always happen after lunch. He looked confused. Why? I had yogurt in the break room. He burst out laughing. Cynthia, you're worried about yogurt? It's vanilla. That stuff isn't cheap. Even while being fired, I refuse to waste good yogurt. Priorities matter. The office had gone completely silent. People pretended to work. One coworker had been reading the same email for almost 10 minutes. Another was typing so dramatically that I was pretty sure the keyboard deserved overtime pay. As I packed my things, Lisa walked over. I'm going to miss you. I'll miss the coffee. She smiled. No. You'll miss making fun of Derek's motivational speeches. I laughed. Those speeches wrote their own jokes. Even Carl had to turn away to hide a grin. Outside, Carl handed me a small envelope containing my final paperwork. I'm really sorry. You've said that 3 times. I know. I just don't think this was fair. I smiled. Neither does the operations manual. He frowned. What operations manual? The one nobody read. I had barely reached my car when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Cynthia. It was Lisa. You need to come back. I literally just left. I know. Derek's freaking out. I started the engine. I'm sure he'll figure it out. No, he won't. She lowered her voice. The backup system won't activate. My smile disappeared. Did anyone open chapter 12? Silence. There are chapters? I closed my eyes. Of course there were. I'd written them. Before I could answer, I heard shouting through Lisa's phone. Then another voice. Carl. A minute later, Carl came sprinting across the parking lot. Not jogging. Actually sprinting. He was waving my security badge in the air like he'd just won an Olympic relay. Cynthia. He was so out of breath he had to stop halfway. Puff. They need you. Puff. Back. I couldn't help it. I laughed. I thought I wasn't an employee anymore. Carl looked embarrassed. Apparently, that's changed. When I walked back into the building, the same employees who had watched security escort me out were now watching security escort me back in. One guy whispered, Is this a sequel? Another replied, I don't know, but it's better than Netflix. Even I laughed at that. The CEO was waiting outside the server room. He walked straight toward me. Cynthia, I've just read your risk report. I raised an eyebrow. The one Derek said wasn't relevant? He nodded slowly. The very same one. Then he asked the question I'd been waiting all day to hear. Can you fix this? I looked over at Derek. His expensive suit suddenly looked 2 sizes too small. I can. But it'll take about 45 minutes. The CEO nodded. Do whatever you need. I smiled. I'll need one more thing. What's that? I looked directly at Derek. My job back. The CEO didn't hesitate. You never should have lost it. 42 minutes later. The warehouse was running again. Orders were moving. Scanners beeped. Forklifts rolled. Customers stopped calling. The crisis was over. The following Monday, the CEO called a company-wide meeting. He thanked the operations team. Then he thanked me by name. Finally, he announced that Derek was pursuing opportunities outside the company. Corporate language is funny. It usually means someone pursued consequences and found them. As everyone applauded, Carl walked by and quietly handed me something. My old security badge. He smiled. Try not to make me chase you across the parking lot again. I laughed. No promises. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't getting the last word. It's watching the people who pushed you out realize they've just escorted the only person who knew how to save them. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Hidden Truth Chronicles for more workplace revenge stories where quiet professionals, toxic bosses, and unforgettable karma collide.